We have a long agenda today, and hopefully we'll get through it quickly. So I'm trying to make the slides advance here. Emily, I'm not getting the slides to advance. Oh, there we go. There we go. So here's our agenda for today. We'll start with an opening prayer. I'll make some remarks. Derek will go through the finances. Ken will go through the endowment fund. And we'll have a bunch of committee updates. And we'll introduce our outgoing members and incoming members and save your questions to the end if you could, so we can get through our agenda. So I'll start with my opening prayer. Gracious Lord, thank you. You are the source of all of our many blessings. Guide us to be your hands as we do your work, loving our neighbors by showing unconditional kindness, feeding the poor, lending a hand to those in need, and comforting those who grieve. Help us to open our eyes that we can see and move forward to complete your work. We pray all of these things in your name. Amen. So with that, I'll just make a few remarks before we get going too far. And I just want to welcome you to the adult forum today. And I'm glad we have a pretty good turnout. And I just want to comment that it's been a real honor and privilege to serve as your 2024 Congregational Council President and to represent you on the council and on the executive committee. We've had an interesting year, a lot of growth, a lot of change. Pastor Katie's border trip to the border, new asylum seeker family, the Wakefield House, our Easter celebration, Build to Serve campaign, a zoo celebration, our annual picnic at the park, the VBS celebration of Nancy Linder's 25 years of service, celebration of Amanda Miller and Eleanor Merchanich, 5 years of service, the Ministry Renewal Project, Rally Day, Art Silent Auction, Seniors with Spirit Met, Photo Directory, Christmas celebrations, and 75 new members. So wow, it's quite a year. So as council president, I've had a chance to see behind the scenes that all the hard work that's done by the staff and the countless other volunteers, it's truly an amazing blessing. I wish to extend my heartfelt thank you to all the staff and volunteers. I'm proud to be a member of the Midvale Community Lutheran Church congregation. I'm thankful for your support and participation in our community. I'll close with a quote from the past president, Julie Waltz, who said it all. Midvale is a community of faith within which we praise God for all blessings and follow the teachings of the gospel. Thank you for permitting me to serve you this past year as council president. Thank you. For that, I'm going to pass it on to Derek.
Can everybody hear me okay here? Okay, sounds good. Okay, so good to see everybody. And of course, thank you for coming. And so we can spend a little time just talking about 2024, how everything went financially, which was a great year, and then look ahead to 2025. I think it's important that I first say just thank you to Gene, and obviously on behalf of everybody on the council and really the whole church. Really appreciate the effort that you put in, really tremendous effort and leadership, and especially your focus on the building project. So we appreciate that very much and the expertise you bring for that. So thank you so much. So I've appreciated working with you the last 2 years. So thank you for that. This is just kind of my summary report, summary of the 2024 financial report. If you have the annual report, if you go to like page 11, you can see more of the detail. There's lots of different detail that goes behind this, but I'd just like to summarize it like this for us all to talk about. So certainly 2024 was a very strong year for our congregation. So we had total Revenue total giving was 870,000, and then total revenue that includes loose offerings and some interest income on CDs and whatever usage of the building we might have was 954,000. So that is a really strong year. Just going to compare it to last year first. So last year regular givings was 829,000. So we went up about $40,000 in regular giving. So that's about a 5% increase just in the generosity of everyone in this congregation providing their regular giving to support the ongoing operations of the church, which is really phenomenal. And then when you get down to total revenue, which includes the loose offerings, that's $77,000 higher than last year, which is 9% higher. So in the time that I've been their treasurer, I haven't seen, growth like that year to year until, I've not seen 9% for year to year. In the offerings, the loose offerings number was $57,000 this year. So that reflects people who have come to our church, are either visiting or maybe are about to become members and are giving. That money is part of loose offerings, right? Because if they're about to become a new member, they didn't sign a pledge card the year before. That's the only way you would go into regular giving. So there was, as Gene mentioned, a lot of growth, new members in the church. A lot of them were continuing and starting to give during the year, and that was all coming through the loose offerings. So $57,000, by far the highest loose offerings number that I've seen in my time as a treasurer. Before the pandemic, we were consistently like around $25,000, $30,000 a year in the loose offerings. So clearly more people were attending our church, intending to become members and giving that way. So that also contributed to a really strong total revenue and giving results for the church. Our costs for 2023 in the end was 911. This year, 913. So the cost of what we spend as our church and congregation for the operating budget was very consistent with last year. Last year we had a deficit of 33,000. This year a surplus of 41,000. So that's about a $70,000 swing towards the positive just compared to last year. And of course that's going to be the case when the revenue and the givings are a lot higher and our expenses are pretty much flat. So really strong year. Last year was strong. This year, even stronger. So when we look at our budget, I'm going to flip to the next slide, or I guess no one's going to flip for me. I'm going to do it myself. Is it just the right? Yeah. So if you have the packet, you can keep that financial slide up if you want or look, but this is sort of, for me, kind of what I think of as our bridge of, this is the budgeted deficit we planned for 2024 to have a deficit, something around $60,000. And we talked about in this meeting last year, budgeting for a deficit is fine for our congregation. Over the last 10 years, we've built up surpluses, over $100,000 worth of surpluses from having kind of continuous surpluses year to year. I think something like 9 of the last 11 years, we've had a surplus, only a couple of years with deficit. So it's fine for us to budget for a deficit because consistently we end up doing better than what we budgeted and end up with positive results. So we budgeted a deficit of 62,000. So kind of like I was saying, our regular giving was about $24,000 higher than we budgeted. So that's very positive. The loose offerings, $30,000 higher than what we had budgeted. So we had lower buildings and grounds costs this year. We had budgeted some additional money for Wakefield repairs. Didn't have to incur those. Some of the endowment grant picked up some of that money as well. A little bit lower utility costs, a little bit less snow. If you remember last year, we had a lot of sort of one-time repairs and maintenance costs that we had to take care of in the building. We budgeted for a little bit of that this year, didn't have quite as much of that, or we're able to use our building improvement fund to pick up on small projects. So less building and grounds costs this year, a little bit less in some of our church staff salary budgets. We have a few open slots as it relates to childcare and some other areas where we had budgeted but didn't use all that money. And then just our other committees who typically spend a little bit less than what they budgeted. So that's kind of the difference between budgeting for a $62,000 deficit, but then actually having a surplus of $40,000. So we probably did better by $100,000 from what we had planned for this year in the budget. So a very strong year. Everyone should be very confident where we stand financially. Does anyone have any questions, I guess, about 2014's results? there is more detail in the annual report if you want to look at it line by line, but this I think kind of sums it up. Very strong year. If you, no one's going to flip for me, I will flip it. So then move ahead, looking ahead for 2025. First thing is our stewardship campaign. And we had a very strong stewardship campaign. So the 2025 pledges, 854,000. So that's much higher than any of the other years listed here. Obviously reflects our growth and new members, and obviously just the generosity of this congregation to continue increasing the amount of money that they have pledged. One thing that did happen probably last year, we paid off our mortgage 1 year ago. There were certainly people who were giving some amount of money to the building fund. They just switched that over to more regular giving. So we brought a little bit of a pickup there, like someone had already been giving $5,000 a year towards the building, just kept giving it, put it towards regular giving. So that's maybe a little bit of that. Some of that might change when we get further into our building campaign, but $854,000 for pledges. That's extremely strong. That's almost 10% increase just in pledges from last year to this year. So certainly that reflects our growth, new members, and just the generosity of our group. To the next slide. So that all puts us in a very good position for our 2025 budget. So in 2025 budget, we again have a proposed budgeted deficit of $60,000. That's very similar to the deficit we had proposed to start in 2024. For the income number, budgeting $957,000, it's actually not that much higher than what we finished 2024. A couple thoughts on that. Some of the growth that I think we're going to see in regular giving is probably going to be less in the loose offerings because there was a lot of new members, potential new members who were already giving through the loose offerings. And a lot of that is just now reflected in the stewardship campaign results. I think the loose offering number is definitely going to come down, at least in my view. Hopefully we're still growing and having all that same growth, but don't know that we want to plan on that. I need to go to the next slide, actually. Yeah, so we're budgeting basically 3% increase in regular giving, but then basically in sort of a similar decrease in the other offerings. So people who are giving in the other offerings, I'm thinking, may have just now put that into a formal pledge. It'll come through the regular giving line. I also think, as has been the case a number of years in a row, that revenue budget that we had up there is probably pretty conservative because we had such a strong stewardship campaign results. We're growing. This is a very generous community. I'm pretty confident we'll end up with more giving and more revenues than we've budgeted here, but I think in the interest of just being conservative, that was the budget that we went with there. As soon as we get to the expenses part of our budget, if you were to, I can't have both pages up at once. So when we go through the committees, we are seeing some increased budget for the committees, which is great. We would like the committees to continue to be as active as possible, supporting the congregation and the community. So some small increases on each of the different committees. We do have an immigration action team line item that's been added to the budget. So there's a $5,000 line for the immigration action team. Certainly that group is doing tremendous work for our congregation, with some people funding that independently, some through endowment grants. As a church, as a council, we want to recognize that as an important committee and group within our church and want to make sure that we have a budget line item for that. That may go up, down, around in the future, but we want to have that reflected as a priority of our congregation. So there's $5,000 budgeted there. For the salaries and ministry support, we did have agreed that we would have a 5% increase to the salaries of our church staff. We're doing a tremendous job when we hear from the personnel committee and how those results all went for the year. Really positive feedback, a tremendous church staff. We want to reward them for all the hard work that they've done as well. Yeah, and our church staff positions are mostly full at the moment, right? We have childcare. We're more actively starting up this year. So it's certainly our intent that what we have budgeted for those church staff positions would be full and active for the full year. It's important, that discussion about the budget we just had was just about our operating budget for the church. We all know we also have the ministry wing project going on as well. Those costs are entirely in the building fund. So the money that comes in for our pledges on the capital campaign and all the money we're paying for the fundraising organizations, the engineering, the architect, that it's all in the building fund. So this budget we're approving is really for our operating budget. We're not, at this point, we're not paying a lot of those building costs. That's all through a separate, the separate building fund. So I want to, oh, I got too many slides. So let me just make a quick comment on the overall operating results of the church. If you were to look at the balance sheet in here, we have about $300,000 in our general fund checking account, cash accounts. We have CDs and cash, which is great. We have a very large reserve of cash on hand. But that's not the goal of our church, to just build up a big bank account. So that's a very strong position to be in. We're building a new building or doing a big renovation. It's nice to have that support. But everyone in this congregation is also given that money to support operations and support the community and the things that we do. So it's been kind of a conversation amongst the council that we need to continue to, as a church community, challenge ourselves. How do we want to spend those resources to support our community? If we have another year like we had in 2024 and 2025, we might end up the year with $350,000 in our bank account. And there's only so much that I can only put so much in CDs and earn a little bit of interest, right? We would like to find some ways to continue to do more for our community and more for the church. So that's kind of something that Gene has been talking about amongst the council. I'm continuing to bring it up to find other ways to continue to be more, maybe more inspirational in our thinking about how we support the community. Nobody wants to be wasteful. We want to be, good stewards of the money, but we also want to do what we can to support the community. We also have the building project coming up. It would be very easy to take some of that money and just put it in the building. That might be a very reasonable thing to do, but a lot of that money was given and not with the idea that it would just become more walls and part of the building. So there may be ways that the building project touches the operations of our church. Like, we're going to have to relocate our people, right? During construction, we're going to have storage. So it may very well be that we need to use some of that operating money in the general fund to take care of some of those ancillary costs that might come from the building project. And when we get into talk about the building project, you'll see all those costs are budgeted there. We might have to have some discussions about how we can use maybe it's church technology, maybe it's things like that our general fund could help support in the building project as well. In the building fund, just so everyone knows, so far we have about $364,000 of cash plus $300,000 of CDs. So we have been, right, people have been generously giving towards their capital campaigns. And in 2025, we are going to start to see more significant outflows, architects, engineers, construction. So between the building committee, we're in a good place there with the money to start making those initial payments. And we're looking very closely at the cash flow of how we are going to manage all the money that's going out and coming in and the bank loans that'll go with that. So that's more to come probably later in 2025, but we are in a good financial position to move forward with the building project. I'm confident in that. So does anyone have anything they want to ask about the 2025 budget? And I'm always happy to take questions, anytime.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Yep. And then we're going to have Ken talk a little bit about the endowment fund. So does this microphone work for him?
Fair work now? Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ken Kavayetz. I'm the chair of the Endowment Committee. I want to walk through a little bit about the endowment fund. Okay, a little bit about the endowment fund as well as what we're using some of that money for. So first of all, the endowment fund, unlike the operating budget, is for long-term investments in new ideas and new ways to explore how to take our ministry into the community. So think of this as long-term investment, right? Long-term funding. The balance at the end of 2023 was 1.458 million. It kicks off 4% on a rolling basis. So this is about 4% of a rolling average is what gets kicked off every year for us to use for the endowment grants that come in. There were additions from estate plans that went in this year. Sometimes we get those added, sometimes we don't. This year we had 64,000 added. And of course, the markets have been doing really well this year, so we had an increase in the value of 191,000. Okay, so we end with 2024, 1.6 and change million dollars in the fund. So what we would expect for the following year is, as the markets move on, we're going to have a new rolling average, and we're going to take 4% of that, and that's what would kick off this next following March in 26, and we'll use that for any endowment grants that come through. So we had 55,000 dispersed for our endowment grants. We had 3,000 that was left over from the following year. Plus we have past unused grants of about 30,000 that were encumbered, but we can bring those back if they are not sort of being used actively. One example of that is there was $15,000 that was encumbered for slides that were going to go into the sanctuary. That committee sort of decided that that idea had sort of passed and wasn't really going to be supported by the community. So we brought that $15,000 back into the fund so that we could use for other things. And we have. So total amount that we have for 2025 grants is $89,325. So as far as the grants go, we had 7 of them. First was the pipe organ. This was brought forward by Loris Farin. Pipe organ really needs some repairs. Every once in a while, it has a mind of its own, and sort of sound comes out of it. Like we really didn't plan for that sound to come out. So that's about $16,000. The second one that came through was Black History for a New Day, is a class that has been held here at Midvale Community Lutheran, and very well received. We're going to be doing that again this year. I think this is for two separate classes that are going to be going on. So this is material for those classes. Of course, asylum seeker support. We have been supporting the asylum seekers for a number of years now. And of course, now we have a budget item in the normal budget for this, in addition to potentially being supportive of the asylum seekers through the endowment fund. As of last year, I think this was the first year that there was a senior scholarship. This is the second year that that's going on. So that $2,000 will be ongoing. We have $1,000 put forward to a grief group that Pastor Blake was the sponsor for. And we, as a committee, decided we wanted to support the wing renovation, and we've decided to put $40,000 toward that, in particular toward technology, because we wanted to make sure that, I think, as Derek mentioned a minute ago, it's not walls. We can actually take this money and look at, we added technology, or we added some, furnishings or something, so people would understand where that money was actually being applied. So all of these were approved at our meeting this fall, and Jay found out that the dishwasher in there kind of went kaput about a couple days ago. And we finally got as of Thursday, we've got a request to have that replaced. And as of Friday afternoon, we approved this. So this will be moved up here in time for the meeting next week. Okay. So are there any questions about the endowment grants that we've approved for this year. Oh, yeah. So by the way, just in addition to this, we've got, so total is about 79,000. We have $10,000 or so left for any grants that come in from now through the fall. So every once in a while, we'll get something to come through, sort of like a dishwasher. We'd like to have a little bit of money sitting around to help out with that. So we've got about $10,000 sitting there in waiting. Questions?
Thank you, Ken.
Okay.
So I think the next slide is for Tony. Advance the slides here for you. Oops, there we go.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Tony Swandy. I'm chair of the Immigration Action Team, and we have been basically bowled over by the Midvale response to our efforts to aid immigrants in our community. Since we started in 2018, the congregation's response in this ministry has been just phenomenal. And we just want to thank you for all of that. This last year, we were blessed to be able to welcome a family into the church-owned house on Wakefield Street, right next door. We partnered with Beth Israel Center. They got a grant from the Jewish Federation of Madison, and they basically came up with about half of the money that we needed to spend to support that family. So we were able to do this as a community partnership, which has been really a blessing. The family is making their way to be living independently. They moved in March. I don't think they'll move out in March. The goal now is late April, but we have funds to support them, so that's good. We look forward to housing another family when they move out. We have a partnership with the Dane County Immigration Affairs Office, and they handle kind of the legal aspects of their immigration journey. And then Centro Hispano, who provides case management for the family. And we have had regular meetings with all of them, including the family, and that's going pretty well. I reached out to both Dane County Immigration Affairs and Centro Hispano, and they do want to continue this partnership. So that's really good. And then the next proposal is that we believe that it's time for Midvale to make immigration a permanent part of our ministry here and add a seat to the church council for an immigration affairs committee. That makes the immigration team accountable for the spending and the budget. It gives all the church leadership voice into what's happening with our immigrant siblings in the community, and also makes all of the church leadership aware of just what goes into supporting these amazing people that we're welcoming to our midst. And we believe we absolutely are well within our call as followers of Jesus to be doing this. And so we're hoping that when that proposal comes up next week, it gets voted in. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thanks.
So speaking of resolutions, this is what you'll see next week, is the amendment to our bylaws to add another congregational seat. And when Tony first proposed this, we weren't sure what really to do with it. So we started looking into it, and I want to thank Ben Campion over there for looking into our Constitution and our bylaws to see what was the story. And it turns out that, yeah, we can have up to 11 members on our council. We currently have 9. And so the bylaws don't prevent it, but it did get us thinking about other things, and I'll discuss that later. But here's the resolution. Be it resolved that the Midvale Community Lutheran Church bylaws be amended by adding the following paragraph. And you see the number there. Immigration action. This community shall work to support new immigrants to our community through advocacy, housing, networking, with like-minded organizations and faith communities, and continued education regarding the issues facing immigrants. So hopefully you will vote yes on this, and we'll look forward to next week's vote on that. So thank you, Tony. And now I'm going to have Nan and Emily present the what's going on with the ministry wing.
Looks like we have a
Oh,
question.
questions.
This question is actually for Tony, probably, who can answer it. Given all of the, I don't know how to describe it, issues, problems, whatever, surrounding immigrants in this country at the moment, is our family down the street safe?
Well, we hope so. They have been given Know Your Rights training and how to keep themselves safe. There is really no immigrant in this country who's safe right now. I guess that's why I think this is time to stand up for them even more. I don't know how many of you know Ngwa Augustine, who lived with us. He is he's a lawful permanent resident now. He's got a green card, right? So he should be safe, right? He's on a path to citizenship. His wife, Stella, and daughter, Ann, who came in 2023, have applied for green cards, but they don't have them yet. So they had a discussion. What are we going to do? Is there a chance that they'll come after us? Because it's all immigrants, right? And so he joined the National Guard, and he's currently at basic training. And they promised to protect him and his family. His wife now has a military ID. And hopefully, that'll be enough. But that's a really good question. Are they safe? And that's, I guess, why I believe pretty much that this is the time to make this more.
Thank you. Just a follow-up. I'm sure you have connections or know of the Community Immigration Law Clinic, and
Yeah.
hopefully they're on board with you. I know they are. So thank you.
One of our upcoming projects that we need to get going on is raising more money for them because they're grossly understaffed with what's going on. It's just ridiculous.
So she actually kind of said what I was just going to say. I mean, you can well imagine with what's going on today that many of these organizations that have been supporting immigrants, their funding is very uncertain now. And, as we as a church consider what to do with our funding, and there's lots of worthy causes, that's one that I think we should strongly consider.
Just have a question, and it's out of curiosity. I don't know. Would we be, and I'm not objecting, I'm applauding it, but do we know how many other churches might have a committee as part of their council? Do we have any background? I'm just curious.
I know that, what's the name of them? It's a Unitarian church on the east side. They have one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, James Reeb. Yeah, they have one.
And it's within the constitution and bylaws of their, that's what
Well, I
I'm
haven't looked
looking
at their, but yeah,
Yeah.
their governing board has an
Yeah,
immigration.
good, thank you.
Yeah. I can tell that next year we're partnering with Luther Memorial in our efforts, and they are the host site for Parroquia Santa Maria, which we've known throughout their time here as a mission church, and they have been recommended that they only meet online, that they don't come to church anymore. just think about that.
Yep. Emily and I are privileged to be with you and represent the Building Committee's Ministry Wing renovation project. And I hope this is inspirational to you as it has been to us. These are just some of the renderings that we've received from Growth Design. We have 35 dedicated, enthusiastic, and gifted people that are serving through the committee. And that involves 10 or 11 working groups that are also part of the process for us. We have a mission statement, which says that our mission is that we shepherd the process of renovating the ministry ring to better live out our mission for our members and our community, and that we will work collaboratively with all the stakeholders to communicate clearly and consistently and be responsible stewards of creation and the resources we've been entrusted with. And of course, we seek to complete it on time and on budget. Okay.
So Nan and Emily asked me to talk about money. Nobody wants to talk about money. So Findorf and Growth have worked very closely to update us on construction budgets continuously, and they will continue. So we don't have any surprises at the end that we know how much money we're going to spend. So their actual number was 10% lower than that, but we added 10% bid contingency just for little scope creeps that happen. I try to remind people that we don't want scope creep, but it happens. So once we get bids in, we still need maybe a little extra money for things that are unknown. When they start opening up walls, they find stuff that we didn't know was there. So that's what 5% is for. And then non-project cost, 800,000. That's all these things down here. And that includes paying the architect. Findorf has a fee for managing the construction cost estimates. Mechanical design team, we're doing this as a design build project. We're engaging with Hooper Construction for mechanical, Perchborn Plumbing for plumbing and fire protection, and Hill Electric for electrical. And they'll also be doing some of the communication wiring. So we're working with them on that. And they're going to have drawings by the end of February for us to take a look at and make sure we're on the same track. And they're also working with our other committees. We have a telecommunications committee or a technology committee that's saying, here's where we need phones, here's where we need data ports, things like that. And they're also doing the AV work. So there's a lot of technology in this building. So after the bids, so we're going to spend, the congregation's already approved $250,000 in our October 27th meeting. And it looks like we're on track to spend about 221,000 of that. We had a hazardous material testing company come in, check for asbestos, and we're expecting that report shortly. So that'll help in the design. And then during construction, Growth is going to be still involved in managing the quality control of the project. Findorf is managing all the subcontractors, so they're charging us 3% for that. And the relocation committees, just trying to figure out how to move people, how much money we have to store, what things we have to store, and a lot of things to manage there. Currently, I'm thinking that number go down. But technology is, and furnishing's got some new furniture, and I think that may be supported by Endowment Committee once we have a better budget on what they want. I think we're expecting quite a bit of new furniture, is what I'm hearing. And then technology, they're still working on their budget, and hopefully we'll understand what's involved with that. And then we have to pay interest on the construction loan. So we're not really taking out a mortgage until the end of construction. So we'll just pay a flat fee. Currently, we're quoted 7.125%. We're not sure if that number is coming down yet or not, so we're still working at the finance committee, still working on that. So next slide. So this gives our Build to Serve a Grow and Fund campaign had pledges of 1.8 over. I think it's grown to even more than that right now. And as of December 31st, we received 700,000 of that already. So there's money in the bank. We put some of it in CDs, some of it in cash. So we're already paying money out to the architect right now, but hopefully we should have plenty of funds for that. And then, so by the time we get started the construction, we'll still have $500,000 of, so our estimated expenses before construction is almost 400,000. We're expecting a loan of about 3.2 million. And so we're working with that. So far, we've got one firm to give us a firm commitment to that. We went out to a couple other firms, and they weren't so generous. So this is the best offer we have right now. And so it's the same, what is it called? ECI. Mission Investment Fund, yes. It's the same firm that financed the sanctuary remodeling. So they know us. And if you look on the handout, you can see all the little numbers on there. Bottom line, we're about 15 years to pay this off. So
So we have a proposed schedule up here for you to see. This is a frequent question for the building committee members, and this is moving right along because we've been looking at drawings. We have made some decisions about some things. There's a lot of things that haven't been finalized, but we're getting there. So we're hoping that in May or June of this year, we'll have the congregational meeting to approve us moving forward with construction. And if the congregation approves, then we're going to start moving out and relocating the many offices and ministries that are already here embedded within the community. And then, so things are going to be a little chaotic for a while. And so we ask you to just kind of work with us, and the staff has been incredibly helpful in helping us plan for this. Then we'll go into construction in July, and that's going to take us a full calendar year, which is more than what it took for the sanctuary renovation. So it's going to seem a little longer to everybody, I think, but we're hoping for some opportunities to have a peek inside some of the work. And remember, we're working on 3 different levels, which you'll be seeing momentarily. And then we're going to celebrate when it comes to September of 26, because there's going to be a lot to celebrate then. So Emily's going to help you go through some of the drawings here.
Yeah, thanks. We're going to go through what, we continue to go through iterations of the design for the new space, and as we work with the committees to make sure that we're representing the needs of the congregation. So this is an update meeting, and we're going to try to go through it quickly so there's plenty of time at the end for questions about the meeting next week. But I just want to show you kind of where we're at, because you've probably seen some of the earlier drawings. So this is the lower level, so where we are today. The fellowship hall is kind of off screen, so this is in all of the new space down that hallway. And so all of the gray area is in the project scope. The mechanical room is also in the project scope, but that's not space we're going to use. And so what we'll have on this floor, and there, I don't know if you can see if I use the little pointer, but as you walk down the hall, updated toilets that will be non-gendered toilets so people can use them. And then on the north side of the hallway, two big rooms. These are going to be active spaces, a multi-purpose room and a youth room, and they will have a divider in between that is adjustable. So these can be opened up into one room or used as two separate rooms for different meetings and uses. And these are going to have hard floors and a couple screens on the walls. And so we'll be able to present video or audio if we need to do that. And then also on the side of the hall are going to be updated storage rooms for the AW team and the quilters, the LWR storage. And then our Boy Scout closet, I think, is going to be the same as it was. On the south side of the ground floor are going to be two meeting rooms, and this is where some of that technology budget, or most of that technology budget, is going to be spent, because these will be capable of having hybrid meetings like the one we're in now, or presentations as well. So the tables are shown for kind of illustration to help you sort of imagine the uses of the rooms. So none of that, like, that's not the only configuration we'll be able to have, and it's not decided, but so these will be two meeting rooms. This is a full wall between, so there's kind of a big meeting room and a medium-sized meeting room is kind of how I think of it. Yeah. Oh, and yep, thanks, Jean's reminding me. Part of the scope is to update in this part of the hallway a hospitality area, and we'll get a view of that in a second. But essentially, if you look that way to that door of the room, there's a coat rack and some hallway that doesn't get a lot of use, and so the intent is to convert that to a hospitality space with some downstairs coffee as well as upstairs coffee for Sundays. So our architect has given us a couple of drawings. Again, it's not a full 3D rendering of what we will have, but just to sort of let our imaginations understand the intent. And this is that hospitality area in the hallway, and how we imagine it will be in the future. And so there'll be a sink and a counter in the corner, some table and chairs. Jean, is this carpeted? Yeah, so this floor will be carpeted. And there'll be just some mingling space. And that way, part of the intent is for Sunday mornings, but also if people are coming and using these meeting rooms downstairs, it's nice for them to have a convenient place to go and wash their hands or get a cup of coffee. This is the multi-purpose room, which that's the one on the north side of the hall with the hard floor and the removable adjustable wall. So this hallway on the other side of this wall will be the youth room, and those can be opened up if people need larger spaces. Nan's going to tell us about the first floor.
So the first floor is going to be significantly different. And the reason is that, of course, that our staff have been in need of much more room to function for a long time. And we also are hoping to just improve the hospitality that people feel and the welcome that our visitors feel, as well as the kids. And so on the first floor, you can see in the gray areas again, and as well as this open office space in the middle, will provide lots of opportunities. We particularly are excited about the reception area from the gathering space. And this is obviously our kitchen, which is not being touched upstairs in the gathering space. But the idea is improved our welcome, and also access by keypad for the mailboxes, and having open workspace for people that come in and don't necessarily need a day-to-day office, but need some places to work that are technologically workable for them on their computers. And there will be some smaller conference rooms in this corridor. Here you can see with a table with 8 seats, pastors' offices, and a collaborative space that will have a clear-story window, which allows for some light in it, so it won't be like living in a cave. Here it's in a little larger version drawing, about the same, and you can see the workroom. And then there will be an accessible non-gendered toilet off of the corridor. Yes, this area and this area will be available to members to be able to access. And this is a rendering that Jared Kraft, our architect project manager from Growth Design, has shared with us. And we've done lots of iterations of this, and we're going to probably do a few more, but we're pretty excited about, this is from this kitchen space looking towards, this would be Pam's space back in here. Here's the mail room, and then Pam and Amanda will have spaces there. Here's from a northeast view. And as some of you may notice, our art glass, we actually had 3 pieces that we could implement and bring in to kind of unify the design, and we're excited about that. It will be backlit with LED lighting. And then this higher desk, we're hoping for a kiosk function off of a keypad to register for classes or youth events, and a lower desk as well. And that will all be furnished with the right kind of electrical technical equipment. Another view. And here is the open office looking east through the office suite.
And then just one note about that first floor, the meeting room that's in the first floor hallway now will be taken over by those offices. And so that one of the reasons that's why we'll have 2 meeting rooms downstairs. That smaller meeting room will pretty fully replace the first floor meeting room that we have now. I get to take you through the second floor, which is the Sunday school kind of space for youth and the younger kids and members of the congregation. And you'll see the touches in the renderings that show that. But here, just to show you some of the big changes, this will be the check-in space when you get to the top of the stairs, or the elevator door is kind of right here. Right now, there's a conference room in this space, and that conference room will be kind of taken out to open up this check-in space. And so from the check-in, you'll have access to the windows that are currently in that conference room. You'll also be able to go up to the hallway. There will be a couple of walls here where we can put signage and maybe some screens to display information. And then we're adding 2 non-gendered toilets again behind this screen, along with a coat rack, to this big kind of check-in area here. Going around to the hallway, I'll start with the hallway. You'll see we have one rendering of the hallway, so you'll get a chance to see how that will look. But that is intended to be a kind of a much more visually interesting, welcoming, colorful space than if you go upstairs today that you might see. And then we're going to update all of these rooms, the nursery, the preschool classroom, the art classroom, and the workroom on the north side. And then 3 bigger spaces for opening and music, for drama, and for games on the south side, along with a 3rd toilet along the hallway for people to use during Sunday school if they need to, and an extra little storage closet here. From the check-in space, you'll be able to, there is again, removable wall here, and this will be a little bit transparent, so you'll be able to see through it, and we'll see that in the renderings. And then this is also a movable wall that could be open or closed depending on how the space needs to be used in a given point in time. And then these, most of these rooms will eventually, they'll be set up so they can have screens. We'll see how many screens we put in to get started, but there will be the ability to display, to show movies or videos or PowerPoints if needed from those spaces. So a couple of renderings. This is a check-in area looking east. This is that kind of see-through partition that we talked about between the check-in area and the opening room. There's an intent to, again, make this colorful and vibrant. I don't think we've got all the colors quite settled on and picked out yet, but just to give you an idea. This is the check-in room, the opening room, and the games room with all of the partitions open. So you can see, if you're doing something like a Advent family night, you can see that there's lots of room to set up different stations and move people through the different areas as they need to go. And then this is a view of the hallway. And a couple of the features that the architects have worked on. One is these curves to give visual interest. Another is to sort of label the doorways with colors, which will help with wayfinding and help kind of say, yep, you need to go to the room with the green door, as you know, which is a good way to help people who don't spend a lot of time in the hallway know their way around. And with that, I will hand the mic back to Jean, and we got a couple minutes to wrap up. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. As you can see, it's a very exciting project. We're very excited about it. Last year, I gave you an update on what the solar awnings were doing. Here's this year's. Doing just about the same amount of energy, maybe a little more, and a few more dollars saved. Still saving $1,000 a year. Isn't that great news? So I got new people coming in. And well, first about people going out, myself, Ben's retiring from the Social Ministry Committee after, what, 9 years? Thank you. And Hans Borterding is leaving the Buildings and Grounds, and Tim Tucker was the Audit Committee this year. Let's give him a round of applause. So we got new people coming in. Andrea Carpenter is the Vice President, President-elect. If you could stand up and introduce yourself. John Warnick is going to take over Hans for Buildings and Grounds. John. Pam Black, Social Ministry. Is she here today? No. Okay. And then Denise Bloom is taking over the Audit Committee, and Tony is going to take our new council position. And I also want to remind people that we have an incoming president, Joe. He just left. All right. Well, you'll meet Joe, I'm sure, in time, but I don't have a picture of him. Returning the Endowment Committee members, Betsy and Randy Schnell. So we'll be voting on all these people next week. And the returning Personnel Committee, Tony Christensen, Bill Kessler, Diane Meredith, and Jocelyn Riley. I don't know if they're here today. Nope. So, thank you for coming. Any last minute comments or questions? Nancy.
I noticed there's a nursery both on the first floor and the second floor. And so are we anticipating staffing that nursery or those nurseries? Because we've just hired a new individual
so
for the one.
there's always been a nursery in Sunday school. And so they've had their own private room just for noise considerations. But yes, so we will have both. So the nursery on first floor will be for your worship times.
And what about the staffing? That's unstaffed or
No, we just
volunteers?
we just hired 2 people for the
Two.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Nancy, I think what you're asking is who's going to take care of the kids in the upstairs nursery?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the Sunday school program.
Yes.
So I think that will not change.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's often parents whose kids are in the other Sunday school. That's a place where they can hang out. If they've got toddlers or little ones, it's just a place for them to go.
So again, if you haven't already, you can pick up the annual report in the back, and it's very interesting reading about all the committee's reports. And there's also a copy of the handout of the slides today. So thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll see you next week, 11:45. Thank you.